Just days before the wedding, I suddenly discovered a strange new ability. I could read other people's minds. And it was through this very power that I uncovered a horrifying truth. My fiancé was not only planning to murder me for profit, but was also conspiring to have me participate in a ghost marriage for his deceased younger brother. That morning, as I placed breakfast on the table, Duncan walked out after washing his face. Right then, I heard his voice, clear as a bell, inside my head. First, get the death certificate done, then contact second uncle. I froze, thinking that he had spoken aloud to me, and asked, "What did you just say?" Duncan looked surprised, "Huh? I thought you were talking to me?" "No." "Ah, I must be confused. I've been working too much overtime lately. Hurry up and eat breakfast." We sat opposite each other, neither of us speaking. But then, once again, I heard that voice, Duncan's voice, again, after that. Complete the insurance claim procedures to receive 2 million yuan. Then hand Mary's body over to Taoist priest Devlin. The soul summoning ritual will be completed on the night of the 15th day of the 7th lunar month. Every single word echoed clearly in my mind. Yet, Duncan was only eating his sandwich, his mouth completely shut. It was then I realized with chilling clarity that what I was hearing was the thoughts inside his head. Mary's body. The phrase played on repeat in my mind like a broken record. A chill ran from the soles of my feet to the top of my head, and I broke out in a cold sweat. Duncan noticed my ashen face and asked, "What's wrong, honey?" I looked at the man I had loved for 2 years and suddenly felt his face become monstrous, bizarre, and utterly unfamiliar. I suddenly feel like my blood pressure has dropped. "I don't feel well. You should go to work first." I made an excuse to get him out of the house, then immediately curled up on the bed, desperately trying to recall everything that had happened over the past 2 years. Once I calmed down, I realized that all the signs were there, and I had been Duncan's prey from the very beginning. 2 years ago, when he accidentally learned I was an orphan, his attitude changed entirely, becoming overly attentive. At the time, I worked as a supermarket sales associate, and Duncan was in charge of the market for a food company. His company's products were displayed at the counter I managed. So we occasionally met, got acquainted, and gradually grew closer. Initially, he didn't show any particular interest in me. But during one lunch break in the break room, the manager casually mentioned that I was an orphan. From that moment on, his demeanor abruptly shifted. From that day forward, every time he came to the supermarket, he brought me gifts. He messaged me morning and night with greetings, sent me pictures of his meals, asked what I ate and whether I was tired. I once told him that he didn't need to pity me because of my background, and that I didn't need anyone's sympathy. But he said, "I'm not pitying you at all. It's just that I used to be very self-conscious. I came from the countryside. My family conditions weren't good. And even though I liked you, I didn't dare express it. When I learned about your situation, it sounds awful, but I suddenly felt like I was worthy of you." After we officially started dating, Duncan treated me incredibly well, intensely well. It was the kind of devotion that made me feel like I was the happiest person on earth. As a child who grew up lacking love, who had struggled to survive, until today, met Duncan like a thirsty weed meeting long-awaited rain. I ultimately chose to give him my entire heart. Duncan was always busy with work and rarely free, but whenever he had time, he would cling to me, saying he couldn't bear to be apart. To be with him, I gradually cut off contact with my friends. Eventually, he was the only person left in my life. Yet, I didn't feel lonely. Having Duncan by my side felt like having the whole world. Looking back now, I was stunned to realize that I was a person with no family and no friends. Even if I suddenly disappeared, no one would wonder or look for me. And that was the first move in Duncan's calculated game. Duncan's family wasn't well off, and he never gave me his salary. I assumed he had to support his family. After all, we weren't married yet, and I didn't want to press him or ask too many questions. It wasn't until a year after we started dating that he told me all. His money was being spent on treating his younger brother's cancer. His brother's condition was critical, and he wanted to take me to see him one last time before he passed away. I went with him to the hospital, carrying fruit and a basket of flowers. In the room, thick with the smell of antiseptic and unknown medicine, his brother, Roger, lay on the bed, pale and emaciated. I cared for him devotedly, trying to show the consideration of a future sister-in-law. But Roger openly scrutinized me from head to toe. His gaze was undisguised, full of blatant intrusion, as if he were assessing the value of an object. After a few seconds of silence, he simply gave Duncan a slight nod. I thought he was just being rude, but considered it a form of acceptance, so I didn't dwell on it, certainly not thinking that a man so close to death could have anything more to do with me. After Roger passed away, Duncan and I returned to his hometown for the funeral. Their village was extremely remote, surrounded by mountains. We had to change vehicles several times, then take a 3-wheeled vehicle up a mountain path for an hour to reach the place. The funeral was deeply traditional. Everyone wore mourning clothes and white headbands. Some people rang bells and chanted scriptures, and the gravesite was surrounded by paper tablets of various deities. Relatives even had to drink water mixed with animal blood to cleanse their sins. 3 days later, Roger's body was to be buried in the prepared grave on the hillside behind the village. At the time, I was only annoyed by how backward Duncan's hometown was. But now, thinking back, knowing that everything was a meticulously orchestrated conspiracy, I realized I had ignored countless red flags. For instance, when Duncan and I arrived at the main feasting area, the way his relatives and neighbors looked at me was bizarre, like the stare of an executioner at an animal about to be slaughtered. It contained a hint of pity born of human instinct, but more so, a strange exhilaration concealing a dark intent beneath those subtle smiles. I, in my naivete, simply thought they were curious, having lived in the countryside their whole lives and meeting a city girl like me. Or Roger's tombstone, his name was carved crookedly, not straight. Furthermore, his grave was significantly larger than the neighboring ones, as if a deliberate empty space had been left. There was also a time, on the night before Duncan and I were to return to the city, when I was helping in the kitchen and overheard him arguing with his father. During the heated discussion, I vaguely heard words like keeper, ritual, and the plan. Yet, I failed to connect any of it to myself. And the very first time we met, Duncan's mother had asked for my birth time and date, claiming it was to see if my fate matched her son's. What should have been the biggest warning sign was the fact that many people in the village were physically disabled, and many women spoke perfect Mandarin with different regional accents. I noticed this and even asked Duncan about it. He simply replied, "Many young men in the village can't find wives, so they have to buy or trick women from other places to come here." He even smiled and shushed me with a gesture. "Some poor families willingly sell their daughters too. It's other people's business. Don't interfere, or you'll offend the villagers." Seeing my unease, he hugged me and coaxed, "Don't worry, you won't suffer like them." At the time, I thought, that's right. I willingly love Duncan. I trust I know him well. He has high self-esteem and would never live in such a desolate place. Thus, the lives of those women were far removed from mine. Little did I know, my fate was to be far more tragic than theirs. The day we left the village, we had just reached the small road at the foot of the slope when Duncan's mother called out, saying he had forgotten something. As I waited, a woman with disheveled hair suddenly rushed toward me, hastily stuffing an envelope into my hand. She spoke in perfectly standard Mandarin. "Take this letter outside. You must give it to the police. You absolutely must give it to the police." She grabbed my shoulders tightly. Her eyes were wide and fierce, as if she would devour me alive if I didn't obey. I was so terrified that I froze, unable to utter a sound. Just then, Duncan ran up and yelled at the woman in the local dialect, calling her a raving lunatic. She flinched, then covered her face and ran away hysterically. On the way back, Duncan lit a cigarette and abruptly snatched the letter from my hand, burning it with his lighter. I tried to grab it back, thinking, she spoke standard Mandarin. She must be one of the women who was tricked and sold here, and I am the only one who can help her. But Duncan was half a head taller than me, holding the flaming letter high. The red fire reflected on his face, twisted and cold. He had received an education, but only because his family had sold a daughter to pay for his schooling. It was the selling a daughter for the bride price kind of thing, and his family still visited her often. I stared at him, grinding my teeth and spitting out each word. She has a southern accent. But this is a northern village. But the letter was already a handful of ashes. Duncan clapped his hands to dust off the residue, then caressed my cheek, spoke softly, "Listen to me. Don't interfere in other people's affairs. Everyone has their own destiny. You too." At that moment, I only thought he didn't want me getting involved with the woman, completely missing the most important phrase, "you too." The incident left me restless for a long time. But after returning to the city, the demands of a busy life, along with his gentle care, gradually made me forget the anxiety of the village and the woman herself. 6 months ago, Duncan and I registered our marriage. We had promised to exchange wedding gifts. I gave him a new suit, saying I wanted him to be the most handsome groom in the village. He gave me 2 life insurance policies, each valued at 2 million yuan. On one, the beneficiary was me. On the other, the beneficiary was him. He was a pragmatic man, and he had said, "If anything happens to me, I hope I can provide you with the best security." Moved, I hugged him and cried, signed the paperwork without hesitation. Recalling everything, I was certain that this morning there was no hallucination. Duncan was truly planning a ghost marriage between me and Roger. I immediately bolted up from the bed and checked the lunar calendar. Today was the 12th day of the 7th lunar month, just 3 days before the ghost festival. I quickly packed my valuables and clothes and called a taxi to the police station. At the police station, they assigned an officer in his 30s to receive me. His name was Officer Ralph, and he stifled a yawn as he emerged. "Miss Mary, you claim your fiancé wants to kill you. Do you have any evidence?" It was then I realized I didn't have a single piece of direct evidence. After a moment of silence, I tentatively asked, "Officer Ralph, do you believe in telepathy?" He paused, glanced at me with clear displeasure. "Miss Mary, do you think we, the police, have a lot of free time?" "No, no, no." I quickly waved my hands. After thinking for a moment, I suggested, "How about this? Think of a phrase or any random idea in your head right now." He leaned back in his chair, looked at me with tired eyes. "Done." I shook my head. "No, you weren't thinking of anything just now." He frowned. A moment later, he said, "Done." I spoke softly. "You're thinking of the phrase, 800 soldiers crossing the North Slope." Officer Ralph's expression finally changed. A slight surprise, followed by a sudden seriousness. The office was silent for a moment. I let out a tired sigh. "Officer Ralph, this is not the time for you to evaluate whether I can use telepathy to help you interrogate criminals. I'm not asking for anything. I'm here to report a crime." He was finally moved and believed my words. "But Miss Mary, speaking from a personal standpoint, I truly want to help you. However, according to legal procedure, I cannot open an investigation just because you claim to have telepathy. It's simply not possible. You absolutely must provide concrete legal evidence before we can proceed." I stamped my foot in frustration. Where am I supposed to get concrete evidence? Do I have to wait until I'm dead and then present my corpse as proof? He quickly reassured me. "Then let's do this. I'll give you my personal phone number. You must immediately go and gather evidence. The moment you see any sign, call me right away. I will initiate the process immediately." And with that, the police escorted me out of the station. It seemed seeking direct police protection was impossible. Now, I had only two crucial tasks. 1, absolutely prevent Duncan from finding me. 2, if he does find me, I must leave a trail. I went to the electronics district in the city, sold my old phone, bought a used one, registered a new number, and saved Officer Ralph's number on the speed dial. I also purchased a necklace with a miniature camera hidden inside. I started calling old friends, hoping someone would be willing to help. Naturally, I dared not tell them the truth, only saying that Duncan and I had an argument and I needed a place to stay for a few days. But because I hadn't contacted them in so long, everyone made excuses and refused to meet me. It appeared my avenues for help, friends and the police, were both blocked. Reluctantly, I could only find a hotel on the other side of the city to rest temporarily and plan where to run next. At 8 o'clock that evening, the doorbell rang. The person outside claimed to be delivering food. The moment I opened the door, Duncan rushed into the room. Before I could scream or resist, he clapped a piece of white cloth over my mouth and nose. The strange chemical smell choked me. I gradually lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was tightly bound with ropes and thrown into the back seat of a car. This was the car we had bought last month. The day we got it, I had imagined our happy future together. Who knew that just a month later, this car would become the ferry taking me to hell? Because the effects of the anesthetic had not fully worn off, I groggily looked at the back of his head, pretending to be unaware of the situation. "Honey, what are you doing?" He glanced at me through the rearview mirror. It was completely different from the gentle, affectionate look he used to give me. His eyes were vacant now, cold, as if he were looking at a piece of rotten meat. "Why were you hiding from me?" I tried to keep my voice normal, whining playfully. "I said I wasn't feeling well today, and you actually left. I got angry, so I wanted to give you the cold shoulder for a bit so you'd worry about me. But why did you have to drug me and tie up my hands and feet?" He cut me off, his voice flat and cold. "Then why did you go to the police station?" I felt like I had been struck by lightning. My body flushed hot, blood rushing to my head, my limbs turning weak. How did you know?" His voice was emotionless. "Your phone. The bracelet I gave you is also equipped with GPS, and I installed cameras in the house. I had anticipated him tracking my phone, which is why I immediately dealt with my old phone after leaving the police station. But I never expected that the bracelet he gave me 2 years ago, right when he confessed his feelings, was also a trap equipped with a tracking device. It turned out that I had stepped into this lunatic's hunting ground a long time ago," he said coldly. "Although I don't know how you found out, since you do know, there's no need to keep up the act. I advise you to be obedient. It will hurt less." I gritted my teeth, squeezing my lips shut, speaking through clenched teeth. "We were together for 2 years. Were you lying to me the whole time?" He gave a small, cynical laugh. "An orphan like you, believing in such a thing as genuine human affection. You were only fooled because you were too stupid." Duncan's village was located in a bordering area between provinces almost, completely isolated and difficult for law enforcement to manage. Throughout the drive, I desperately looked for a chance to escape or call for help. But the mountain road was deserted. Forget a police station, I couldn't even spot a civilian. The car drove all night. As the sky slowly brightened, my hope for survival faded. When we reached the entrance to the mountain, a three-wheeled vehicle was already waiting. The driver was a villager. I recognized him from Roger's funeral. Duncan used black tape to seal my mouth. He roughly pulled me out of the car, signaling to the other man and calling him second uncle. When we arrived at Duncan's family's old house, his parents greeted him with bright smiles. But the moment they saw my state, their smiles vanished. They asked him, "Did she find out?" He nodded. A slight mistake occurred. "It's better not to have to act anymore anyway." His father took a drag of his pipe, speaking with clear displeasure. "The last time she was here, I already found the acting tiresome. Lock her up in the woodshed." Perhaps due to exhaustion or the potency of the anesthetic, I leaned against the pile of firewood and drifted off to sleep. A strange noise woke me up. My eyes fell upon that woman, the one who had tried to slip me a letter asking me to take it to the police. Now she was wearing a coarse cloth dress, her hair neatly combed, no longer showing the crazed look of that day. She held a bowl of porridge and walked toward me. I desperately made muffled sounds, hoping she would rescue me. She squatted down in front of me, shaking the bowl of porridge as if tempting a stray dog. "Want to eat?" I tried desperately to signal with my eyes, rapidly blinking and pointing at my mouth, hoping she would remove the tape. She let out a cold, soft laugh. Her eyes suddenly became sharp as knives. She violently slammed the bowl of porridge onto the ground, half of it spilling onto the floor. "Why didn't you help me?" She suppressed her voice, but every word was laden with hatred. She grabbed my face, squeezing hard until my jawbone painfully crackled. "You clearly could have gotten out. Why didn't you help me? A cold-blooded, heartless woman like you deserves to be tricked and sold here. If only you had helped me that day, I would have told you what Duncan's family was plotting. This is all your own doing." She suddenly shoved my head hard to the side. I was so ashamed, I didn't know where to hide. Tears streamed down my face. She was about to say more when Duncan's mother's voice called out from outside, "Second uncle's daughter-in-law is taking so long. Hurry up and feed her, then go feed the pigs." She shouted back in the local dialect. "I know, I'm coming." With that, she tore the tape off my mouth. I immediately gasped for air, sobbing and pleading, "Please, I beg you to save me. I really did report it to the police for you, but they said the evidence wasn't sufficient. It must be, your letter had a problem." She clearly didn't believe me. Her face was cold. She grabbed my chin and forcibly poured the porridge into my mouth, the gruel splattering all over my face and nose. She looked at me as if watching a cruel joke. "Do you know what they plan to do with you?" Her eyes sparkled with malicious pleasure as she spoke. "During the ritual, they will make you drink wedding wine laced with rat poison, then throw you into the river, faking an accidental drowning. Duncan will collect your insurance money, and then they'll bury you in Roger's grave. You are more miserable than me. You are more miserable than me. Ha 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 ha." She laughed hysterically, like a madwoman. The bowl of porridge emptied. I fell to the ground, coughing violently. She stood up, brushed her hands off, and prepared to leave. But I couldn't let her go. She was my only hope of survival right now. I screamed, my voice hoarse, "I really did report it to the police for you. But they said the evidence wasn't sufficient. It must be, your letter had a problem." She turned back, glaring and grinding her teeth. "Impossible. My letter had no problem. It must be your fault." I whispered, "Think back. Think about what you wrote on that paper, what was missing." Sure enough, my prompting made her start retrieving the contents of the letter from her memory. A plea for help like that, she must have remembered every word clearly. I remained silent, listening to her thoughts, memorizing every single detail she was recalling. After a moment of thought, she realized on her own that she had omitted a few crucial details. Without another word, she ran off in a panic. I leaned against the pile of firewood, panting for breath, the information she had just thought of repeating endlessly in my mind. The more I thought, the more tears flowed. "I'm sorry. I absolutely must escape this even if I have to use you." In the evening, she was the one who brought my food again. The moment she entered the room, I called out, "Alice!" She froze, gasping sharply. I forced a bitter smile. "You are Alice, aren't you? I was right after all." How do you know?" How could I tell her the truth that I had heard everything while she recalled the letter's contents? With one flash of telepathy, I had gained another trump card. "I reported it to the police for you, but they wouldn't proceed. Afterward, I searched the internet for missing persons and saw a family story looking for their daughter with a photo very much like you." I hesitated, not daring to believe it right away, but I clearly remember the post said you were from a southern village, went missing when you were 20, and the incident happened 10 years ago. Is that true?" She nodded repeatedly, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, that's right." And that was the first time she fed me porridge gently. As I ate, I whispered, "That missing person notice has your family's contact number. You need to find a way to get my phone back." I can help you call them. I meant every word. Duncan had confiscated all my belongings. Only by finding a phone could I contact Officer Ralph. Fortunately, he hadn't noticed the miniature camera necklace. Everything that had happened along the way was recorded. I now had the evidence to open a case file. But Alice shook her head. It won't work. They burned your phone a long time ago. If they never intended for you to return, keeping those things would be useless. Alice was the first university student from this village, very smart and articulate. I asked seriously, "Then, do you have a phone?" She sighed. "They know I always want to run away. How could they buy me a phone? 2 years ago, my neck was chained with iron links day and night. Although they later married me off, any hint of trying to escape would result in a brutal beating. The last time I gave you that letter, I was beaten and bedridden for 2 months. It was then I noticed her neck, bearing a deep, dark mark left by the long-term shackles. All the planned routes were now blocked. For a moment, I didn't know what to do next. I couldn't swallow another grain of rice. Alice urged me to eat, but I shook my head. She remained silent for a long time, then tiptoed to the wall, glanced around, and leaned down to whisper in my ear, "Wait until they are asleep tonight. I'll figure out a way to sneak out and lead you away." I stared at her in shock. I never expected her to take such a risk for me. She pressed her lips together tightly, as if holding back something she couldn't say. After a moment, she lowered her voice. "I'm betting my life on you. If you manage to escape, you must find my family and call the police to save me." I nodded firmly, tears rolling down. "I promise. I will definitely save you this time." In the dead of night, the yellow dog outside the woodshed barked twice. Then came light, cautious footsteps. Alice crept in, crouching low. She used a small knife to cut my ropes and pulled me to run. Unexpectedly, as soon as we reached the courtyard, we ran straight into Duncan's mother, who was stepping out of the main house. Seeing the two of us, she immediately screamed for Duncan and his father. The 2 men rushed out, one with a stick and the other with a hoe, blocking our path. Soon after, second uncle also appeared. I gripped Alice's hand, gritting my teeth. "There's no turning back. Let's fight." She nodded. We stood back to back, grabbing 2 carrying poles propped up by the wash basin. We prepared to charge out, but how could our strength compete with several muscular men? After a brief struggle, Duncan twisted my arm behind my back. Alice was grabbed by the hair by second uncle and dragged across the yard. He cursed obscenely while brutally striking her. "You barren chicken! I've raised you for so many years and you still dare to run? I'll break your legs and sell you to a brothel tomorrow. I'll even make a few more bucks." Every word was vile and sickening. Alice suddenly screamed, "I'll fight you to the death!" She struggled, shoving second uncle hard, wildly scratching and hitting him. The second uncle roared, retaliating with continuous blows. Finally, he pushed her with all his might. Thud! A dry impact echoed. Alice's body flew backward onto the stone wash basin, then collapsed onto the ground. Her eyes were wide, still filled with unspent rage and fear. Blood spilled from the wash basin, flowing into a long streak. The horrific scene unfolded right before my eyes. I screamed hysterically. It was the first time I had witnessed a murder. My legs gave way and I couldn't stand. Duncan held me tight, covering my mouth from behind, squeezing so hard that I was nearly suffocating. In my helpless struggle and silent tears, I watched them drag Alice's body away like a piece of garbage, saying, "The ghost marriage is in 2 days. Don't cause any more trouble." Then, they threw her corpse into the family's root cellar like refuse. Duncan grabbed my hair, forcing me to look into the cellar opening. A damp, moldy, putrid smell rushed out, making me want to vomit. Alice lay in a pile of vegetables and potatoes, her eyes still wide open, staring up at the cellar entrance. She shouldn't have died. I had caused her death. He leaned close to my ear, his voice low and sinister. "Your parents abandoned you the moment you were born. The only person in this village who wanted to save you also died because of you. Do you still have the face to keep living?" I shook my head repeatedly, tears streaming down. "No. I wanted to help her escape. I wanted to save her too." His voice remained icy. "Even if you escape, nothing is waiting for you out there. What is there left in this world for you to cling to? Just listen to me. I promise it won't hurt much when you die. It will be over in an instant, all right? This world truly seemed to hold nothing worth clinging to." I cried until I was breathless. His hand never loosened its grip. Finally, I collapsed from exhaustion, lapsing into darkness once more. When I woke up, the atmosphere outside felt incredibly festive. The crackle of firewood from the stove and the lively chatter of guests drifted into the room. I realized I was no longer in the woodshed but in a bedroom. My hands and feet were tied with rope and my mouth was sealed with tape. I was facing a half-height red wooden cabinet. On it, Roger's portrait smiled at me, a grin that seemed to mock my desperate struggles. A moment later, Duncan's mother entered. carrying a red lacquered wooden box containing a traditional wedding dress. 2 older village women followed her. She pointed at me, warning, "We have to untie you to change into the wedding dress. It's best to be obedient, or I'll just knock you unconscious to make things easier." I shrank back, nodding furiously. But the moment the ropes on my hands were loosened, I immediately pushed her away, struggled to my feet, and tried to hop out. Just then, Duncan and his father kicked the door open and rushed in. Duncan cursed, "This woman truly won't weep until she sees the coffin." Unexpectedly, his father lunged forward, pushed me onto the bed, and pinned his entire body weight on me. He knelt on my legs and forced my arms above my head. I immediately understood their intent, letting out muffled mm sounds in despair, tears streaming uncontrollably. I was shaking all over, staring wide-eyed at Duncan, hoping for a flicker of conscience. But it was completely useless. Duncan showed not a single ripple of emotion. Right in front of everyone, he ripped my t-shirt in 2, then casually pulled off my jeans and threw them to the floor, completely unconcerned about who was watching. At the same time, I heard voices outside the courtyard. "The pig is slaughtered. Call a few more men over." I was stripped naked like an animal about to be butchered, forced into the red wedding attire, had my hair styled, and was made up like a sacrificial bride. At this moment, I slumped onto the floor in despair, vaguely hearing the sound of chanting and bells from outside. My mind was blank until I heard the Taoist priest shout in the local dialect, "Invite the ghost to marry his wife. Mary, born in 1989. Today she is married out. May Roger's family be peaceful and prosperous." Peaceful and prosperous for their family? I laughed coldly. "If I truly become a ghost, your entire family will never have a single day of peace." Just then, someone shouted, "It's time!" I didn't know what ritual was happening outside, only hearing the Taoist priest yell, "Invite the ghost in!" Duncan's mother entered the room and tore the tape off my mouth. "Taoist Master Devlin said I won't cover your mouth, but you'd better keep quiet. No one will save you even if you scream. If you don't cause trouble, at least you'll keep your dignity." Dignity? I laughed coldly. Talking about dignity now? Next, she placed a red veil over my head, helped me stand, and guided me out of the room. Through the red fabric, I vaguely saw 3 banquet tables set up around the courtyard. Guests were seated, laughing and chatting. As we neared the main hall, I suddenly tore my throat open, letting out a series of chilling, eerie laughs that echoed through the dark mountains. In the blood-red hall, Roger's portrait was placed in the center, surrounded by hanging yellow flags. A rooster with bound legs struggled violently. I, a woman in a red wedding dress and red cloth shoes, was laughing like a female demon. In a horror movie, a scene that would terrify even those accustomed to ghost marriages. Duncan's family clearly hadn't anticipated this, but with guests present, and Duncan taking his brother's place holding the rooster for the ceremony, he couldn't immediately rush over to deal with me. His mother frantically patted my back, whispering close to my ear, "Don't laugh. Stop laughing!" I deliberately lowered my voice, making it thin, piercing, and eerily cold. Then screamed, "Above is the blue sky, below is the yellow earth. Divine spirits of the 4 directions, please witness. These people here have no hearts, utterly malicious. How can they be allowed to live in peace? Heaven has eyes. Tonight, I vow to become a vengeful ghost, to slaughter these wicked souls, suck their blood dry, and drag them down to the 18 levels of hell without regret. And all of you present today, I will make you live forever in nightmares. The things you fear most will repeat in your dreams every night without end." I violently shook my head, making the red veil fall. I twisted my mouth into a spine-chilling smile, then swept my gaze over the guests, whose faces were turning pale. "Don't try to forget the most cruel things you have ever done. I saw them all. Retribution is coming. Retribution is coming." I once read a psychological effect: the more you forbid someone from thinking of an elephant, the more they will think of an elephant. Sure enough, after I finished speaking, not one guest uttered a sound, but the world inside my head erupted into noise. They were all thinking of the most wicked things they had ever done. The chaos of their minds surged, growing louder and louder, making my laughter even wider, more terrifying, and more maniacal. Then, I broke free from Duncan's mother's grip and lunged straight toward the nearest table, confronting a middle-aged man with a thick beard. I stared intensely at him, hissing, "To raise your young son, you drowned your own 3-year-old daughter in the river, didn't you?" The man's eyes went wide. His mouth stammered as if filled with mud, unable to form words. Just then, the woman next to him, holding a young boy, turned pale. She grabbed a beer bottle and smashed it straight into his head. "Die, you beast. You told me she fell into the river by accident. I'll kill you." Smash! A sharp crack echoed. Blood poured from between his eyebrows, running down like a crimson trench. As the couple fought chaotically, Duncan's parents rushed to intervene, momentarily distracted from me. I immediately staggered to the second table. This time, I targeted the only plump, made-up woman among the guests, so it's you. All the women in this village were kidnapped by you. But you didn't share the profits fairly. You swallowed half of your accomplice's share. As soon as I spoke, the man sitting next to her glared at her, his eyes filled with murderous intent. She screamed in panic, "Listen to me, I can explain." I didn't stop, darting to the third table. You slept with your own brother's wife. That child is yours. You beat your first wife to death, and now you dream of her demanding your life. You stole the retirement money of the uncle who raised you. When he got sick, he died slowly because he couldn't afford treatment. And after his death, you shamelessly fought his son for the inheritance. The entire courtyard shook. The sound of overturning furniture, curses, and screams erupted everywhere. Beneath the blood-red moonlight, Duncan's courtyard was chaotic, like a living layer of hell. I laughed loudly, fiercely, maniacally. Every sentence I uttered struck the vital point of each person. No one was spared. Not a single person in this village was innocent. I rushed into the main hall. The people standing inside, who were watching the chaos outside, froze. I looked directly at the Taoist Master Devlin, curling my lip into a cold smile. Sweat poured from his forehead. He backed away until he hit a pillar, his voice trembling. What are you going to do?" I turned my head toward the door, speaking with deliberate ambiguity. "See it?" His facial muscles twitched. He instinctively looked toward the main entrance. "See what?" he yelled. "The women you arranged ghost marriages for. They are standing outside the door, staring right at you. Which one do you fear the most?" Of course, I couldn't see ghosts. I didn't have the ability to summon souls. But I knew that if a person harbored guilt, even if there were no real ghosts, they would see them anyway. Sure enough, Taoist Master Devlin began to tremble, constantly looking toward the door, then quickly shutting his eyes, shouting, "You're lying! There are no ghosts! There are no ghosts!" But I heard it. Inside his mind, he was screaming, "It's that girl! That girl! My master forced me to do it." It turned out this was what he feared the most. I turned, raising my hand toward the door as if calling a young girl, painting a horrifying image in the air, a girl of 5 or 6 with braided hair, stepping closer and closer. He shook violently, his voice hoarse. "You're lying! How can there be ghosts in this world? Even the gods are fake." Just then, Duncan's parents rushed into the hall, pointing at me and shouting, "Quickly, cover this crazy woman's mouth!" I suddenly whipped my head around, my eyes locking onto Duncan. All the suppressed emotions of the past years fully erupted in this instant. I cried loudly, my voice choked yet razor-sharp. "Mom, Roger misses you so much. He misses the spare rib soup you used to make." As I finished the sentence, Duncan's parents froze. Even Duncan, who thought I was just acting like a demon, turned pale and was speechless. He had never mentioned Roger liking spare rib soup, but his mother, every time she saw Roger's portrait, was reminded of her little boy demanding that dish. I continued, "Mom, it's so cold underground. I'm so lonely. You two come down here with me. Come down." At this, Duncan's mother collapsed to the floor, wailing miserably, still clutching the rag she had intended to use to gag me. I laughed hysterically, looking into the bronze mirror placed in front of Taoist Master Devlin. The mirror reflected a terrifyingly grotesque face. My cheeks were plastered with garish pink blush, and 2 black lines stretched from my eyes like tears of blood. I was neither crying nor smiling. In the mirror, I was a vengeful ghost demanding retribution. Duncan was the first to regain his senses. He roared, "You bitch! I'll kill you!" Still bound, I saw him charging toward me and slammed my head hard onto the ancestral altar. The altar held white candles, incense burners, ritual wine, and Roger's spirit tablet. The candlelight quickly ignited the wine and the red cloth, spreading fire rapidly through the wooden house. The fire erupted fiercely. A charred ceiling beam collapsed, landing directly on Duncan and his mother. Some people wanted to rush in to save them, but I stood in the inferno and screamed, "This I saw retribution! This is their retribution. Anyone who dares to save them must descend into hell with them. Ha 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 ha. We're all going to hell." The fire spread everywhere, scorching through my ropes. I trembled, pulling my hands free from the binding. The flames grew fiercer, crackling loudly. Beams and ceilings collapsed one after another. I had no way out now. Through the thick smoke, the courtyard outside appeared like a mirage. I didn't know if anyone was left out there. Suddenly, my ankle was gripped. It was Duncan. His face was white as a corpse, his voice hoarse as if someone were throttling him. "Mary, for the sake of our marriage, I beg you." My teeth ground together with hatred. I stomped my red cloth shoe straight onto his face, then leaned down, staring satisfied into his fear-filled eyes. I said coldly, "Don't worry. Looking at this inferno, I won't escape either. We'll go down together to continue settling the score. But if I survive, because we were once called husband and wife, I will send you off in the most dignified way possible." In the consuming fire, Taoist Master Devlin, Duncan, and his mother gradually fell silent. Only his father remained, eyes wide open, unable to close them even in death. I had almost lost all sensation in my skin and no longer felt pain. I slowly walked toward the ritual table, lifted the bowl of rat-poisoned wine, a wedding gift they had prepared for me, and took slow steps toward Duncan's father. I firmly gripped his jaw, hearing a choked groan in his throat. "You really want to know what this wine tastes like? Why don't you try it for me?" And just like that, I never thought I would survive that fire. At the time, all I wanted was to drag the entire Duncan family to hell with me. Death was deserved. But perhaps heaven had pity on me and spared me. Somehow, I managed to escape the blaze miraculously. I immediately destroyed the recording necklace on my neck. Keeping it would only bring disaster now. My body was covered in severe burns, but after escaping the village, I used my status as Duncan's legal wife to claim the 2 million yuan insurance money he had prepared. He had written my name as the beneficiary only to make his own insurance policy look legitimate, but his perfect plan backfired on him. After receiving the compensation, I underwent plastic surgery, changed my name, and found work at a cosmetic hospital. After some time, I shifted to the beauty industry. I invested every penny I saved into business. In the 7th year after the fire, I returned to that village under the guise of a philanthropist sponsoring road construction. The local government welcomed me, and I joined the survey team. I came back because one thing was left undone. The village hadn't changed much in 7 years, as if time had stalled outside the world. When we reached the small path next to Duncan's family's field, I saw the charred ruins of the old house from afar. I feigned a casual question: "Did this house burn down?" The village chief nodded. A local official with us said, "It looks old. Why hasn't anyone renovated it?" The village chief waved his hand, his face solemn. "That house is cursed. No one dares touch it." He gestured and narrated the most terrifying story in the village. At the time, back then, this family wanted to perform a ghost marriage for their dead youngest son, but they ended up bringing back a girl born on the 10th day of the first lunar month. They say that girl could communicate with spirits. The result? The whole family burned to death on the night of the ghost festival. You know what the scariest part is? They initially planned to put rat poison in the wedding wine, drown the girl, and bury the death certificate in the youngest son's grave. But when the fire was put out the next day and villagers checked, all that was left was the father's corpse, foaming at the mouth, next to the bowl of poisoned wine. Later, the mother's body was fished out of the downstream river. The villagers still didn't believe in ghosts, so they opened the youngest son's grave only to find the eldest son's body inside. Then someone said they saw the bride that day walk out of the inferno without a single burn on her body, her hands raised like a zombie, hopping into the mountains and vanishing. I couldn't help but chuckle. My young colleague, Amy, shivered. "Miss Mary, how can you laugh? I'm getting goosebumps just listening." I patted her shoulder, smiling softly. "It's just local folklore. Do you really believe it?" The village chief glared, agitated. "Folklore?" The ghost marriage met a psychic girl. The whole village saw it. That's why no one dares to renovate that house. Everyone is afraid of inviting disaster. I raised an eyebrow, staring intently at the village chief. "So you're saying, before they performed the ghost marriage, the entire village knew what they were planning, and no one intervened?" The village chief gave an embarrassed laugh, mumbling, "Our village has always been poor and isolated. Everyone was afraid of getting involved." I turned to Amy, smiling. "In that case, why don't we start digging right here? It will help the village get rid of the evil spirit." Subsequently, Duncan's village continuously made headlines and hot search trends. The construction crew excavated a female skeleton from the root cellar behind Duncan's old house. DNA testing confirmed it was the body of Alice, the missing person. Following the investigation, second uncle, who had kidnapped, abused, and murdered her, along with a group of women traffickers in the village, were successively arrested. Through their confessions, the police discovered the village had been a hotbed for the illicit trade of wives. A clear list of the women who were tricked and sold into the village was published. After consulting the victims, those who wished to leave were escorted back to their hometowns. I heard that when the police took those women away, the angry husbands ran to Duncan's old house and vandalized it, pouring dirty water and spitting on it, cursing that ghost marriage ruined the whole village. And Alice, imprisoned for 10 years and buried for 7, finally, I brought her home. When the road construction donation was finalized, Amy drove me to the airport in the official car. On the way, she kept texting on her phone, occasionally giggling. I leaned my head and teased, "Texting your boyfriend?" She blushingly denied it, then immediately confessed. "He said he wants to make up the 23 birthday gifts he never gave me before." I smiled, resting my head against the seat. "Stay level-headed, kiddo. Don't trust men too much." Amy smiled awkwardly, then turned back and asked, Miss Mary, you're so beautiful and rich, you must have had many admirers, right? Did anyone ever give you a special gift? I thought of the insurance policy from years ago and gave a cold laugh. Someone once said that if anything happened to him, he hoped he could leave me the best security. And he actually did? Amy tilted her head. What happened after that? I shook my head. He died. Since then, I haven't wanted anything to do with men. Amy rested her chin on her phone and softly said, That's a shame, but there's a beauty to the tragedy. I gave a faint smile, looking at the stunned girl. You truly are an innocent soul, just like the me of years ago.